will be here today and tomorrow, and we hope that we'll have fruitful discussions. We have a whole list of panelists coming from various fields with extensive knowledge and experience, and we're looking forward for the conversations and the enriching experience. Without further ado, we'll get on to the program, and we'll start with the welcome remarks by Dr. Yemisi Jeff Agbola. And sorry. Yes. So our first speaker is Dr. Yemisi Jeff Agbola, who's the founder of VOWDA, and Professor Babatunde Rabiu, who is the chairman of the Board of Trustees of VOWDA, and also is a professor of physics and the director of the Center for Atmospheric Research of the Nigerian National Space Research and Development Agency. That's located in Kogi State University. He was also appointed professor of space and physics, space physics by the Federal University of Technology, Akure in Nigeria, October 2010. He is a member of many professional bodies, has a vast knowledge and experience, has published many scholarly articles, and also have supervised many PhD and master's students. Professor Yemisi Jeff Agbola is an associate professor in the Department of Biological Science, University of Medical Science in Ondo, and she's passionate about agricultural development. She holds a doctoral degree in food microbiology from the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Nigeria. Please, Dr. Jeff Agbola, the floor is yours. Nigeria, October 2010. He is a member of many professional bodies, has a vast knowledge and experience, has published many scholarly articles, and also has supervised many PhD and master's students. Professor Yemisi Jeff Agbola is an associate professor
in International
Symposium
on
Science,
Women in Agriculture
in Ondo,
Symposium,
passionate about agriculture,
commensurate with the World Food Day and the International Day of Rural Women,
from the
the
Federal
theme
University
Capacity Building for Women in Agriculture and Smallholders Farmers.
Jeff Agbola.
My name is Yemisi Jeff Agbola, the founder and president of Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture. As you know, IITA is at the forefront of the fight against hunger, malnutrition, and poverty. In this connection, VOWDA has a mission to transform agriculture through science, technology, and innovation that ensure world food security for all and economic prosperity by bridging the gap between agricultural scientists and rural farmers, most especially women, in achieving Sustainable Development Goal SDG 2, which aim to end hunger. First, allow me to provide you with some information about the situation of agriculture in Nigeria and most especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Unfortunately, there are few women scientists in Nigeria, and there is this the case across Africa. Although women produce, process, and market the majority of African food, only 1 in 4 agricultural researchers is a female. Even fewer 1 in 7 of the leadership position in Africa agricultural research institution is held by a woman. And if Africa is to feed 2.4 billion people, if we have to double the current population, by 2050, it must increase its food production by 260%. And to accomplish this, we need the best and brightest mind coming up with food security solutions, including the important contribution of women agricultural scientists. Women are guests are vital force for rural economics, and I invite you to watch us grow and to help us plant the seed of change for the next generation. I appreciate the effort of Dr. Dashiell, the Deputy Director General Partnership for Delivery IITA, Dr. Rosana, and Dr. Catherine Lupaz, and also Ms. Zainab Zore, all the local organizing committee of IITA and Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture. We want to thank you again for this great opportunity to collaborate and for holding the torch high for Nigerian women agricultural scientists and smallholders farmers. May I invite Professor Rabiu to give his welcome address. Thank you very much.
Dr. Babatunde Rabiu, could you please unmute yourself?
Can you unmute him?
Yes.
Okay, so we have audio issues. We're having some difficulties to hear Dr. Babatunde Rabiu. So please bear with us. Mm-hmm. Move to the next speaker, and the next goodwill message is from His Royal Majesty, Oni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Enitan Ogunwusi, from the Royal Palace of Arole Odua, cradle of the Yoruba people, and sits on leading a population of over 300 million people across several countries and continents, including Nigeria, Ghana, Republic of Benin, Cuba, West Indies, Brazil, and the US. His Royal Majesty is represented by Engineer Olusegun Oloro, Special Assistant to the Oni of Ife on Agriculture. Engineer Olusegun Oloro, if you're with us, the floor is yours. We'll have a video message from Engineer Olusegun Oloro. His Royal Majesty is represented by Engineer Olusegun Oloro, Special Assistant to Agriculture. Engineer Olusegun Oloro. We'll have a video message. We can't hear anything.
Play the second one. What is happening?
Look forward to more collaboration and future engagement. And God bless you.
Just say that. Please bear with us.
Mm-hmm. Please bear with us while we continue playing the video of Engineer Oloro.
Available data shows that women's smallholder farmers constitute 70 to 80% of the agric labor force. Women in Nigeria face a lot of challenges with. My name is Segun Oloro, personal assistant to His Imperial Majesty Oni of Ife, Oba Enito Adeyeye Babatunde Ogunwusi, the Ojoja II. Who would have loved to be here, but for some urgent engagements that he needs to attend to. He sent his warm regards to the organizers of this webinar and all the participants. Nigerian women play important roles in food and agriculture. Available data shows that women's smallholder farmers constitute 70 to 80% of the agric labor force. Women in Nigeria face a lot of challenges with regards to funding, access to land, and machineries. His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife, is very passionate about empowering women in Nigeria. He's presently working towards providing gender-friendly machines that can compete globally and access to more lands and funding opportunities. On behalf of His Imperial Majesty, I wish you all fruitful deliberations, and please remember that this is a collective responsibility. We look forward to more collaboration and future engagements. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Olusegun Oloro. We will now hear from Professor Babatunde Rabiu, if he is ready.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, great. We can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm sorry for the initial issue. Your Excellency, Majesty, the Arole Ojoa, the Oni of Ife, distinguished guests and participants, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of VOWDA, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all and sundry to this 2021 Women in Agriculture Symposium. VOWDA is extremely proud and grateful to be collaborating with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, and CGIAR in organizing this particular event. It's on note that these two organizations are globally known and respected organizations with track records in development of agriculture across the globe. VOWDA is committed to agricultural productivity, growth throughout the value chain, among other responsibilities. This workshop holds a lot of promise, which I believe every participant will benefit from. On this note, distinguished guests and participants, Your Imperial Majesty, I wish everyone a fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Professor Babatunde, we will now move to the next goodwill message from Professor Adeshina Fattusi, who is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Medical Sciences in Ondo. He is a community medicine and public health specialist, and he is currently the Vice Chancellor of Nigeria's first specialized health and medical sciences tertiary institution, which I just mentioned earlier, the University of Medical Sciences in Ondo. He was a director of international research with the Guttmacher University in New York, and he has earlier served in several leadership positions. He's passionate about capacity building and mentoring and has initiated several capacity building programs and international academic partnerships. Please, we would like to welcome Professor Adeshina Fattusi is represented by Professor Nuwumba, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academics. Okay. Please, the floor is yours. Yes.
Rosana Umba.
Angela?
Rose Angela Umba.
Professor Rose Angela Umba.
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah.
Unmute her, please. Yeah. Please answer.
Yes, Professor Umba, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. I'm representing the Vice Chancellor, Professor Rosana Lamoba, representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Medical Science, and I'm here to deliver the goodwill message from the Vice Chancellor. I'm pleased to join the voice of women in the development of agriculture and the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, Nigeria, to celebrate the World Food Day and the International Day of Rural Women. With leaders in government, business, and captains of industries here present, it is an opportune time to draw attention to the vital role women play in agriculture and the importance of creating economically sustainable programs that assist women and by extension address some of the challenges of global food insecurity. Women farmers are not only the backbone of family units, but also play pivotal roles in our community, agricultural production, and food security. In Africa, rural women constitute over 60% of the agricultural workforce. Unfortunately, this crucial human capital often endure the worst working conditions with low wages, little or no sector, more often than not, have limited or no access to business and financial services, support which they need to thrive and prosper. In several communities, despite their critical role in agriculture and production of food security, they remain largely excluded from land ownership, access to wealth, and participation in decision-making. Demographic changes and conflicts resulting from escalation in the effects of climate change on agriculture, and by extension, disruption of agricultural production system, worsen existing gender inequalities and create new barriers and risks for women farmers. It is a sad irony that rural women, who constitute majority of the world farmers, still face food insecurity. If we are to make progress towards achieving at least 6 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the UN SDGs, by the year 2030, there is a clear and present imperative to acknowledge and address these challenges faced by rural women. Their contributions and leaderships are keys to achieving the SDG 1, which target poverty reduction, SDG 2, which aim to end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. SDG 3, focused on health and well-being. SDG 8, aiming to improving work and productivity. And they reduced inequality associated with SDGs 5 and 10. With the implementation of these goals, I truly believe that a society of gender equality and zero hunger is possible in our lifetime. As we celebrate World Food Day and the International Day of Rural Women today, we acknowledge their role in food security at the community, national, and global context, and also recognize their implicit knowledge and skills in the management and national resources for sustainable agriculture. As leaders, let's lend a voice in support of programs that create conditions which allow women to thrive in rural and non-urban contexts, stem disruptive migration to the cities, and arrest the vicious cycle of hunger and poverty. I thank you all for organizing this meeting, and I wish you the best for all the sessions that you've planned ahead. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Chrysanthus Arkham is the coordinator of the Technology for African Agricultural Transformation Program Management Unit. This is a project funded by the African Development Bank and other institutions. And prior to his appointment here, he was the project coordinator of the African Development Bank funded project Support to Agricultural Research for Development of Strategic Crops in Africa. Please help me welcome Dr. Chris Arkham. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Zainab, and thank you everybody for being patient. I was running a little bit late between another engagement. I'm very delighted to be here representing Dr. Dashiell, as Zainab has said, who is on another assignment and on his way really back. At short notice, I was asked to make these remarks, goodwill remarks, and I'm really happy to do so. The theme of the symposium, Capacity Building for Women in Agricultural and Smallholder Farmers, is very appropriate to me at this time because the building of capacity of women is a critical area of agriculture if you look at the involvement in agriculture. I would have really liked that theme to be refreshed as building the capacity of women who make up the majority of smallholder farmers in Africa, to be building capacity for women in agriculture as smallholder farmers. Not as smallholder farmers, they are the smallholder farmers in the African context. There are about 70% of the engagement in agriculture, especially at the smallholder level, is women. Unfortunately, if you went to a national program and called for a capacity building program, you'll see the reverse. 70% men will show up, and then maybe 30 women if you are lucky, 30%. It's always the case. Unfortunately, the real smallholder farmers are women, and they are the ones being relegated to the back. They do the major work, but they're relegated to the back to do the hard work. And unfortunately, this hard work involves rudimentary equipment, like the hoe that they're using, the land races that they're cultivating. And then you see the yields dismally low because that capacity is not reaching the real target they're supposed to reach. Guess what? Men preoccupy themselves mainly with the marketing, you know, where the money is, transforming the products and marketing them. That is where men dominate. So to me, I think it's a very appropriate focus to redirect that focus. It's about time that we have that direct focus on seeing how we can engage the women directly. Women are directly involved, and their role need to be recognized. They need to be strengthened. And whatever we do will go a long way to do that. We at IITA, we are very pleased to be collaborating with the Voice of Women in the development of agriculture through this symposium. As an institution, we recognize the importance of having women, or of the role that women play in agriculture throughout the continent. As an institution, we are doing all we can to continue to increase this engagement, to make sure that we play our own role so that women are engaged. How do we do this? We do this through a number of strategies, and I'm just going to cite a couple of them. The first one, we really believe that training, that capacity, has to start at a very early age. And that's why at IITA we have a program called Start Them Early. And this is basically going and introducing agriculture as a curriculum in the secondary schools, so that they start recognizing agriculture not just as a thing that mama goes and does, but they can really see that there's value in taking agriculture to another level. That has been very successful. And the engagement in that program makes sure that we have a good, equal proportion of boys and girls. Instill that knowledge into them right at the beginning. The second strategy we are using is called what we call the Youth in Agripreneurs. This is our very, very successful program that's been running for a few years, thanks to the DG of IITA who initiated this through the youths that are serving as corpers at the Institute. Many of them are not agricultural background, but as long as they have come to an agricultural institution, we now start to instill them with the knowledge of agriculture. Basically make them to realize that agriculture is a business. And then you see many of them say agriculture or farming is cool. We have been very successful also because we consciously make sure that we engage 50-50. 50% of women, 50% of men to be involved in that program. So that has also been very effective for us. Then the third but not the least one that I want just to quickly remark about is our recruitment process. In every recruitment in IITA, we make sure at the end of the advert, you see it clearly said, we encourage women candidates to apply. It's on purpose because we are still striving a little bit lower in the number of career women that we're including into the Institute. The Institute has a target, I believe it's about 40%. We're almost getting there, about 30-something%, I believe, right now at the moment. And that's another way to make sure that we bring women, build their capacity so that they can become professional and build the capacity of others. So we're really delighted with the collaboration that we have with the Voices of Women in agricultural development. And we hope that together as an institution, we'll continue to do our best to make sure that we support the efforts of this collaboration and to make sure that we achieve what we want to achieve. And again, I want to thank all of us for the efforts we are all making, joining hands to recognize an area that is really, really important. And I can assure you, in my capacity at the moment as a management representative, that IITA is really committed and will make sure that the capacity of women is built in any way possible so that they can join forces in transforming agriculture, which the Institute is really focused on. So I thank you very much, and I look forward for us having a wonderful symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akem, for this very powerful speech. We would like to just go through some key points and key takeaways from the goodwill messages and all amazing and inspiring words that we've heard since this morning. And the first aspect is the lack of representation of women in agriculture, how it's very palpable. Although they constitute over 60% of the labor force, that's most of the hard work, with equipments that are not very adapted to the work. And they also face the worst conditions in their workplace and also in agriculture, including low wages, little to no access to land and wealth, and also very little representation in the decision-making sphere. Coupled with instabilities and the climate change, women really bear the brunt of these effects. In order for us to reach the SDGs, it is very critical to look at the plight of women in agriculture. And as we celebrate the World Food Day and International Rural Women's Day, it's important that we remember that we have to support programs that allow women to thrive, just like was mentioned earlier by all our goodwill message speakers. It's important that we build capacity of women at an early age, including through the educational system, and also programs such as the engaging the youth in agriculture and agribusiness. We also have to be mindful of recruiting, of our recruitment processes, so that it can encourage women to step more in the professional spheres and in this professional sphere and be represented at all levels and all segments and sectors within the agricultural sector. Thank you very much for all these powerful messages and takeaway messages. We would like, before we move to the keynote talk that will be given by Dr. Vikki Wild, I would just like to tell all participants that they can put their questions in the chat box, and those questions will be collated and then we'll provide answers to those questions. There is a slight change in our program. After the keynote talk, we were supposed to have a group photograph where we would allow all participants to open their videos for us to take a photograph, but we'll have the group photograph at the end of the sessions today around 1 p.m. or so. So please stick around with us. We have many, many more interesting conversations and engaging discussions to go through, and we really, really hope that you will get us very challenging questions, interesting questions in line with the topics that will be discussed in the remaining of the program. Now we will move to the keynote talk, which is a video by Dr. Vikki Wild. Dr. Vikki Wild is the Senior Program Officer for Agricultural Development and Women's Economic Empowerment of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. She is responsible for the Women's Empowerment portfolio in the foundation. And in addition to managing grants aimed at empowering women in farming, households, and agribusiness, she works closely with the foundation's teams for nutrition, crops, livestock, markets, data, and policy. Before joining the foundation, she had 30 years work experience in agricultural development and has several field missions throughout Asia, Africa on behalf of the FAO, IFAD, the World Food Program, and also she is part of the consultative group on international agricultural research, which is the CGIAR that IITA is part of, with other sister centers. So we will now listen to Dr. Vikki Wild.
Program Officer that leads the Women's Empowerment portfolio at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Agriculture Development Team. And I'd like to start by expressing my thanks to IITA and the Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture, VOWDA, for inviting me to say a few words during your Women in Agriculture Symposium. I'm in Seattle, and it's my pleasure to join you today. You know, at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we have a motto that all lives have equal value. And that seemingly simple statement is actually quite radical, because it forces us to ask within every data set or every investment or every partner we work with, whether we are building for transformation and equality or whether we are perpetuating the status quo. And I think one of the greatest risks if we do not build for gender transformation is that we further ingrain pre-existing inequalities. You know, the arc of history is bending towards greater equality around the world, but it's happening too slowly. Still today, no matter where in the world you are born, whether in my country or in your country, your life is going to be harder if you are born a girl. But did you know that this will still be true for our granddaughters at the current rate of progress? Can we afford to wait nearly another century before gender equality becomes a reality? If we don't change direction, if we don't support more transformative programming for gender equality, it will take too long, or it might not even come at all. Just look at the reversals that have been occurring today due to the COVID-19 pandemic, dramatically threatening lives and livelihoods, but especially that of women and girls. It's reported that we're losing a whole generation of progress because this pandemic is not only biological, it's also social. It exploits the pre-existing conditions of our societies. It exploits the racism, the sexism, the poverty, and the hunger in the same way that it exploits the pre-existing conditions in our bodies. Bill and Melinda years ago decided to put a big focus on the agriculture sector because that's where the majority of the world's poorest people are. The 1 billion who live on less than $2 a day are smallholder farmers who rely on agriculture to feed themselves and their families, and yet many of them cannot grow enough or raise enough to eat or to sell. So we focus on inclusive agriculture transformation because smallholder farmers and small-scale livestock keepers are overrepresented among the lowest percentiles of national income distributions. And among these, the women are poorer than men. And the second reason we focus on inclusive agriculture is because we recognize that growth that is not inclusive will forfeit the broader benefits. All too often, the opportunities are based on who you are by gender, by class, caste, race, sexuality, or color, rather than by your actions, your hopes, or your aspirations. Growth does not automatically lift all boats. And that's why we say that poverty is sexist. Even as the health and education status of women and girls might be improving, their economic lives continue to lag. And this is because women often are restricted by long-standing social norms to the lower skilled work or to the lower value commodities. In our priority countries, we find gender gaps in income as high as 53%. So much of our work at the Gates Foundation is driven by a desire to use the best possible data. But to help us make better decisions. And unfortunately, most of the government's household surveys around the world are capturing only about 75% of men's economic activities and no more than 30% of women's. Our data sets hide the lives of women and girls, and this makes them invisible to the policymakers and to those who design agriculture programs. In Nigeria, for example, we have made an investment to close these kinds of data gaps with the World Bank's Gender Innovation Lab. And we've rigorously documented the size of the gender gaps in Nigeria. And what we found is that they add up to 30% in agriculture. In other words, in Nigeria, combining North and South, of course, the rates are much higher than in the North than in the South. But together, women's agriculture productivity is 30% less than men's on average. And this is not because women are worse farmers. It is because they still today do not have the same access to agricultural services as men do. They don't have the same access to extension, to improved seed, to credit, financial services, and so forth. The gender gaps in self-employment, in among the entrepreneurs, the profit gap is 66%. Again, this is not because women are not good business partners, but because they do not still today have the same access to credit and capital. And there's a 22% gender gap in wage employment rates in Nigeria, and not wage employment rates, but in payments. And this is still just because women are being paid less than men for the same job. So if those gender gaps were to be closed today, if we could close the gender gaps in agriculture, self-employment, wage employment, the Nigerian economy would yield an additional gain of over $9.3 billion, or 2.3 of annual GDP, or up to 22.9 billion, or 5.8% of GDP, if you account for the spillovers to the other sectors. So the good news is this. The data makes it clear in concrete terms that if we were to focus our policies, our strategies, our programming, and our interventions on closing these gender gaps, the entire economy would be lifted, everyone would benefit, and we would reduce hunger and increase prosperity sooner. Women are not inherently more vulnerable or weaker or less intelligent. This disempowerment, these gender gaps, is a failure of our systems. It's a result of the intersections between gendered power dynamics and societal norms that have been continuously perpetuated by the market systems, the financial systems, the information networks, and the policies. When these systems work well, they provide a solid ground from which individuals, families, communities can climb out of poverty and create wealth. And now we have to think about climate change too. Ultimately, climate change is an equity issue. Those who did the least to contribute to the problem are going to suffer the most from it. And those who are being hit first and hit hardest are the farmers around the equator. And there's a few key facts here. Did you know that women and children are 14 times more likely than men to die during a climate-related disaster due to the gender differences in their capacities to cope and insufficient access to early warning information? And that 80% of the people displaced by climate change are women. And that there's a direct link between climate change and child marriage. In Malawi, for example, 1.5 million girls are estimated at the risk of becoming child brides as a direct result of climate stress. So there's a risk too that as we promote new agriculture technologies to support climate adaptation, including this emerging ecosystem of drought-resistant seeds, smart farming, digital tools, better water management, if these are extended in a way that mirrors or perpetuates the existing inequalities, they will further exacerbate the gaps and reduce women's resilience to climate shocks and damage their prospects for economical empowerment. All this to say, in a very big picture way, that the conversations you're having here today are really important. They're urgent, and I know this is hard. As you look for ways to focus more on women in agriculture, this is crucial conversation. It's part of how to build back better. And one question I always ask myself when I'm looking at a new investment in agriculture is, will this increase her agency? The concept of agency is central to our work because increasing agency means we've expanded women's options. We've expanded her choices. It's at the heart of our Gates Foundation's empowerment model because it refers to the capacity of women and girls to take action, purposeful action, to pursue goals, their own goals, free from the threat of violence and or retribution. In particular, with agency and for women in agriculture, we're looking at increasing women's decision-making, increasing women's leadership, and supporting their collective action. This is why I'm excited about your focus on women's leadership in agriculture, because agency can't come from the outside. At the end of the day, we have to recognize women as agents of their own change. And in the pursuit of more transformative approaches, then our job then is to serve as a facilitator, an investor, and that often starts with good listening, putting aside our own biases, and working side by side with the women and men in the communities for co-creation. This takes humility, it takes trust, and it takes time. And I think it takes experience and skill to do this well. And of course, we believe strongly in the importance of gathering data along the way so that we learn more about what works and we can share the findings with others. So I wish you all the best in this important work. And thank you for inviting me.
All right, this was the message from Dr. Vikki Wild. Again, very interesting message with lots of key points to take away. Dr. Wild mentioned how the data that we gather makes women often invisible to policymakers and also those that are designing and implementing programs and interventions, because they only capture about 30% of women's activity versus 70% for men. And some key information as well that really paints the picture of the women's situation in agriculture. We have about 30%, women are less productive than men by about 30%. And female agripreneurs really face about 66% less in terms of profit than their male counterpart. And we have a wage payment of about 22%. So closing this gap, looking at Nigeria, would give the economy about 9.3 billion. That's a big number. That is very impressive when you think about this in numbers, or even increase GDP by over 5%. These are very critical information for us to soak in and to realize that we can't continue ignoring half of the sky. That's a very critical aspect. Now, gender norms or gender gaps obviously are created by gender norms and societal structures, and we've mentioned the effect of climate change and how most women, most displaced people are women, about 80%. So this conversation is very important for us to ask ourselves the question if we will increase her agency in the interventions that we have and expand women's options. Women also are agents of their own change. And so the co-creation of these programs and guiding the investments into the right path would take us to be humble, to trust each other, to be true to one another, to share our experiences, all of this backed by data. Now we will move to the second session of this symposium, and we will listen to presentations from other speakers in the field of agriculture and also powerful advocates for women's development. We'll start with Professor Janice Olaoye. She's from the University of Ibadan, and she was born at Hartley, Iowa in USA. And she obtained her PhD in sociology from the University of Ibadan in 1986. She was a professor of rural sociology at the Department of Agricultural Extension and Rural Development of the University of Ibadan in 1988. And she taught for 30 years until voluntarily retiring in 2016. She has extensive research work in and expertise in social issues related to rural development and gender issues. And she's had over 70 professional publications, has carried over 60 research assignments, and has worked for several institutions, including IITA. She's currently a partner of IITA. Her talk today is on the women's role in agricultural development, problems and prospects for enhanced food safety and security. Professor Janice, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Zainab. It's a privilege to be a part of this symposium. I believe that someone is controlling the slides, so we will have to go a bit quickly because the topic is very, very broad. Women's role in agricultural development, problems and prospects for enhanced food safety and security. I could probably speak on that all day, but I have about 10 minutes, and so we're just going to hit the highlights, I hope. Can we go to the next slide? I'd like to make a couple of introductory remarks. First of all, as I said, it is a great honor and privilege to be part of this symposium. particularly given the emphasis upon women and to commemorate the International Day of Rural Women. I've been focused on the study of women, especially rural women, and their role in agriculture as well as other livelihood strategies for many years. And seeing that they've been faced with their challenges, yet I'm always impressed with their resilience and the potential to make a significant contribution to the economy and well-being, not just of their own households and families, but to the community and to the region as well. And so I believe that as we focus upon women's role with recognition to the gender issues that are relevant to the discipline of agriculture, I do appreciate the opportunity to bridge the gap. I am a sociologist, rural sociologist by training, and it has always given me the opportunity to bridge the gap between agricultural and social sciences, that is between the people and the product, thereby also encouraging a multidisciplinary approach to solving agricultural and rural development problems. Now, there are a few remarks that should be made before going into the presentation. And first of all, to recognize that there has been great progress that has been made in understanding gender and understanding the role of women generally over the last 2 or 3 decades. There was a time when nobody really thought it was an important topic at all, but now, of course, it is central to almost anything that you talk about in terms of agricultural development. However, the recognition of women's significant contribution and gender sensitization alone achieves little. We can be sensitive, we can recognize that they do contribute, but unless those programs or projects are mainstreaming gender into practical application where women can be empowered, very little will be changed. And so this presentation is based on research by many authorities, as well as the personal field work I've carried out throughout Nigeria and Ghana over the years. But I want us to remember that the people I refer to today are largely the poor, uneducated, and mostly rural women who do not have a voice here. We do not have speakers from that category of people, but whom we must represent. These are the people that can affect food security and safety. So next slide, please. I want to talk about a few problems, and there are several that are faced by women in agriculture. And the first one I think is very, very important, and that is the general lack of recognition of the significance of the role played by women in productive and economic activities, even though I have said that there's greater recognition now than maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, but still we don't have a full understanding. From so many studies, it has been found that the important livelihood activities of women to ensure food security for their families, as well as to provide needed income, have not been acknowledged, not only by researchers, but, and certainly men in the locality, but also by the women themselves. Many times when you ask women of their occupation, they will say, I don't have any, I'm only the housewife. And when asked in a more innovative manner, inquiring into different activities they engage in, a more informative picture emerges. I have seen studies where, even when I've conducted them, where when we really delve into it, we find out that the women are engaged in 2, 3, even up to 6 different income generating activities by one woman. And I came across a painting recently, and this illustrates clearly what the point I'm trying to make. And it was said to have been done by a 9th grade boy in Kerala, India. And so the situation in India is very similar to the situation in most developing countries. And he was confused because his father always introduced his mother as, she's just a housewife, she doesn't work. And the boy said that he was surprised because he never saw that his mother was idle. And so this painting in the next slide depicts his mother's daily activities. And it was sent to the state government office where it was selected for the 2021 cover for their gender budget document. And if you look at this, you can see, even related to what is happening with rural women in most places in Africa, certainly in Nigeria and Ghana, that they're busy all day long. They're doing different kinds of things. And all these things help for food security, help for their
generating a little bit of income as well. They will be involved obviously in different aspects of agriculture, whether it's production or processing or marketing. They'll be involved in livestock production. They'll have a couple of goats and a few chickens. They will be involved in fetching water and in firewood, and they'll be cooking, even selling some of their produce for as snacks or in the marketplace. So many different activities, and yet they will be said to be just a housewife, not having any occupation. If we go on, we find another problem that several problems that we very often find, and that is that female farmers are wrongly assumed to be less efficient than male farmers. I was happy with Vikki's comment that it does not mean that female farmers are less efficient or effective. It simply means that they are not having access to the kinds of resources necessary to make them more productive. Then lack of control over productive resources. They have access to land, they have access to capital, they have access to labor, but they have no control. Sometimes even over their own labor, they don't have control. So this is a problem because if you don't have control over the land, for example, you cannot decide how it can be used over the long term. Again, each of these points I could speak on for quite some time, but without the time, I would just quickly go through them. Increasing responsibilities for women without increasing returns. Physical limitations, poor health, and lack of time. Many of the women, even during their reproductive period, they may even be pregnant or have recently given birth, and yet they're out in the field working. Lack of time. When we do time studies, we find out that they're busy all the time. And this is why women are also good at multitasking. You can do several things at the very same time. Then exploitation by marketers and other service providers. Inability to take advantage of economic opportunities as an individual. Many times we will find out that as a group, they may be able to have access to resources, to capital, to land, but very often they're not able to take advantage of economic opportunities as an individual. Then of course, different social restrictions, and as it has been mentioned by a couple of speakers already, the problems of environmental degradation and climate change. When we realize that it is the women that are usually, the women and children that are usually responsible for getting the water and the firewood for the household, and it is becoming more and more difficult to get, then it increases their workload as well. The prospects for females in agriculture to enhance food security and food safety. First of all, we need to realize that good practices do exist, and we need to really promote those, identify them and promote them. Too many times we assume that the people themselves do not know too much, and we as the experts are coming out to tell them how they should farm, how they should do all their different activities. But we recognize that there are good practices that exist, and there have been programs which have found ways of improving upon the local ways of doing things, the indigenous knowledge, and those good practices should then be, of course, scaled up and disseminated. There's also the willingness to innovate. I have seen women who are willing to take more activities on. They're willing to do things in a new way. There was a time when I was talking to a group of women in Ghana, and I told them that, well, they're selling their cassava tubers as tubers, that if they were able to process them, they could get a better price. And I asked them if they would be willing, and they said, of course, if it will make money, they would be willing to do it. But I told them, but you're already working 16 hours a day. And they said, it is not poverty that kills. It is not hard work that kills, it is poverty. If we will make more money on it, we would do it. So they're willing to innovate. They're willing to take on new activities. And then they have experience already with diversified livelihood strategies. As I showed you earlier, they are doing many different things in order to make their livelihoods. The potential of local groups. Sometimes we go out and we think that we have to form new groups, but the fact is that there are local groups already existing. and we can build upon them, they have potential. It is also a prospect. And so to just give a few recommendations, we need to take the sociocultural, agroecological, and geopolitical diversity into consideration for development strategies. We cannot say in generalized senses, this is what women are doing, this is what women need. There are so many sociocultural differences. I said one of the problems may be social restrictions, but that is very different from one sociocultural group to another. Some women are able to do some things which other women are not, and yet they have opportunities which other women don't have. And so we need to look at it in terms of the locality specific differences and consider that for development strategies. We do not have a one size fits all kind of recommendation for or strategy for women in developing countries, because they are doing so many different things. They have so many different kinds of problems and prospects. From the agroecological sense, even in Nigeria alone, we go from almost desert to down in the Niger Delta area, which is, of course, all different kinds of agroecological zones all together with different kinds of crops, different kinds of problems, different kinds of potentials. And then also the geopolitical diversity in terms of official policy, in terms of official kinds of programs. Vulnerable groups should be targeted, even within the women. Not all women are vulnerable. Some are able to take advantages even as individuals, but we do need to target the vulnerable. Many of the women are very poor, of course. Some of them are from ethnic minorities. Some of them are elderly. Some of them are still in their reproductive ages. All of these have different types of vulnerabilities. Some are widows and don't have access to the kinds of control over resources that they would if they had a husband. Also realize that most farmers, male and female, are rational. Understand our target beneficiaries holistically. Understand, don't just look at them. We have a program for maybe maize production. Don't just look at them in terms of their activities as it affects maize production and processing and marketing. Look at it in the totality. All their livelihoods are important. Then care must be taken to protect the health of the beneficiaries. Can we go on to the effective planning for
Professor Janice, you have just 1 minute to wrap up so that we can move to the next.
I will.
Great.
Effective planning for sustainable agriculture and rural development requires accurate and reliable gender disaggregated data on the target population. Vikki mentioned that it is crucially important. We don't know how many people we have. We need to know what they are doing, males and females, not the population in general. Then policies and strategies should promote gender equality. And finally, we need to recognize their potential, not just to focus on the challenges. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Janice, for this address or this presentation. We will be making some of the critical points at the end of all the presenters' presentations. So we'll quickly move to the next one, which is Professor Esther Akinlabi. Professor Akinlabi holds a bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Engineering degree in Agricultural Engineering, a master's and doctorates in Mechanical Engineering, and she's a full professor of Mechanical Engineering and is currently serving as the director of the Pan-African University for Life and Earth Sciences Institute in Ibadan, Nigeria. She is a rated National Research Foundation researcher of South Africa, and she has demonstrated excellence in all fields of endeavors. She has mentorship and leadership. She has leadership, mentorship, and research experiences that spans from several years, and she has also several publications, authors and co-authored over 600 peer-reviewed publications. Please, Professor Akinlabi, the floor is yours. I would just ask all presenters to stick to the time. So we do have a tight schedule. My apologies if I interrupt or I cut in, but I will try to just help us to stay to the time. And for our participants, please post your questions on the chat box, and we will be taking them once we move to the panel discussions, which is the following section of this symposium. Professor Akinlabi, over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator, and good afternoon to everyone. I would like to stand on the existing protocol so that I don't take so much time on greetings and felicitations. It's my pleasure to be invited to give a presentation on the topic on addressing the challenges of women agricultural scientists and smallholder farmers on this Women in Agriculture Symposium. This is the outline of my presentation. I'll give you a background, some statistics, women agricultural scientists, smallholder farmers, the AU agenda on agriculture and food security. I will then talk about how we can address some of the challenges that I have been able to point out, and I will summarize. I will try not to bore you with some of the points that have been raised by the previous speaker, Professor Olawi. I really enjoyed her talk, and there are a number of things that she had in her slide, which I also have on my slide as well. I will try not to repeat what she has said. A bit of a background. The statistics are shocking. The African Development Bank STI report in 2018 that only 3% of graduates from universities in Africa get a decent job. And we have a fast-growing African youth population, which is estimated to increase to from 705 million in 2018 to 1 billion by 2030. However, women make up only 28% of the workforce in STEM when we're now digging deep into the STEM fields. And then among the STEM fields, we then take out agricultural science. And statistics has it that 43% of women are involved in global agricultural labor force, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization. Whereas 41% of women are involved in agricultural scientist field. Someone might wonder why all these statistics, why is she quoting all these statistics? The fact remains that because of the issues around people finding white collar jobs, hence it has become imperative, very, very important, that agriculture and entrepreneurship has to be the order of the day for us on the African continent to feed the nation and for each and every one of us to be able to survive and actually strive in whatever we are doing. On this particular slide, I have here that a few things that women that are in agricultural science fields can actually do. One of them is leveraging on opportunities at their disposal to ensure that they get involved in grant proposals, leverage on exploring emerging technologies, collaborate very widely to solve practical problems, don't do it alone. Also try to collaborate with the smallholder of farms, and also ensure that we project agriculture as a very fanciful profession. For the smallholder farmers, it is a fact that there is a significant discrimination when it comes to land and livestock ownership, as highlighted by the previous speaker. Participation in decision making is very low. However, when women realize, we know that all these things exist. However, we should not dwell so much on the fact that we are being discriminated upon, and so therefore we fold our arms and not try to do what we need to do. For me as a woman in engineering, I have learned over the years, going through my career, to always try as much as possible to ignore when I'm being discriminated upon. So there are a lot of things like that women we actually need to learn from and come out of our shells and actually do what we can do, because we have all it takes to survive. For small holder farmers as well, it's also very important to leverage on opportunities that present itself. I read recently in the media that the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Ibadan Export Assistance Office, organized a workshop on best practices in global yam export on the 12th of October. And I was glad when I read that there were 525 women that participated, 525 participants, of which many of them were women smallholder farmers. That is highly encouraging. There are also issues around the fact that smallholder farmers, particularly women, are not able to have difficulty in accessing credit and financial services. And the FAO has always been a body that has been in the forefront of fighting not only for women, but generally for agriculture as their mandate. And the FAO has always worked at two levels to engage with government and also at individual levels as well. And at individual levels, they try to empower women, in particular with entrepreneurial skills, business planning skills, to make them more independent and capable to participate in the local economy. Next slide, please. Yeah. I just want to talk briefly about the AU agenda regarding agriculture and food security. There is a division in the AU, African Union Commission, that coordinates the implementation of the African Union decisions related to agricultural transformation in Africa. I have few of the continental initiatives that I have here in fisheries and aquaculture, organic agriculture. There's a lot of trainings, workshops taking place at the African Union Commission level, and also facilitation of a joint Africa-Arab action plan on agricultural development and food security. Many of these calls are always on the website, and I would like to encourage as many women in agriculture to try from time to time to check on the website of the African Union Commission and actually take up the challenge and apply for some of these grants as well. Now, looking at addressing the challenges of women in the field of agriculture science and smallholder farmers. One, I would say that it is very important that as women, we overcome the belief about intelligence, that there's this belief that men are more intelligent than women. Of course, it is not. We all have our brains. Application of emerging technology, I mentioned that earlier on. It's also very important that we get involved in a lot of role modeling and mentorship. And there's need for us, for many women who have already made it in agriculture, women who find themselves in management, senior levels of women who are agricultural scientists, or smallholder farmers who have made it in their field, to try to mentor the younger generation that are coming behind. Our life experiences, we need to try to overcome that as well, with respect to a lot of stereotyping and a lot of biases that takes place when people are actually associated to agriculture. Agriculture has always been viewed as a dirty field, something that many people don't want to relate with. And I'm going to share part of my case study. I'll talk a bit about myself when I get to that particular slide. Creating the environment, making the environment to be favorable, which will encourage more young women to get involved in the field of agriculture. And lastly, I also like to say that we need to take our lives in our hands as women and actually take proactive steps. And this led me, with respect to taking proactive steps, this led me to start the Powerlessy Women Forum. Resuming here at Powerlessy as the director of the Institute in July 2020, I realized that all the programs offered in Powerlessy, with agriculture as one of our mandates, they are all STEM fields related. And I know what women in STEM fields face globally. Hence, I started the forum in August last year to commemorate the Women's Month, which is celebrated in South Africa. And this forum has transformed to a lot of support, to give a lot of support system to females that are enrolled at Powerlessy. There have been several events on the breast cancer awareness, a lot of talk shows on time management, cooking, sporting activities, a lot of interaction, and so many programs that are taking place in the Powerlessy Women's Forum. And they meet once every month for various activities, and there's a lot of testimonies, a lot of feedback of how they are very happy to belong to this particular group, on how it has been highly supportive. Next slide. Yeah. So still on case study on taking a proactive step. For me, I recall far back at the university, at the Federal University of Technology in Akure, starting with agricultural engineering. I must be sincere that I actually applied for civil engineering because that was the course that my father was a civil engineer, and he encouraged me to take up after him. And I applied for civil engineering. But when I was issued my admission letter, I was issued to study agricultural engineering. I tried to change my course. It was impossible then, and I had to go to school to study agricultural engineering. In Nigeria, the Yorubas, we call farmers agbe. Throughout my 5-year study in FUTA, every one of us, 23 of us enrolled in agricultural engineering. We're all called agbe in the Faculty of Engineering, then in FUTA, correct? I was very, very angry. I tried to change my course in the 2nd year of study, and the head of department and the deans then said that they would not allow me to change my course because at that point in time, I was the best graduating student. So I resolved to fail. To say, okay, I was stuck with this agricultural engineering. This takes me back to role modeling and mentorship. I didn't have a role model. I didn't know any woman that is in agricultural field at that particular point in time. So I managed to just finish up this program, and I was just tired of being called agbe. Everywhere I turned, agbe. It was so stereotyping. I felt terribly bad about it. However, I ensured that I was going to be the top of my class, and God helped me. I graduated as the best graduating student. And for me, I was done. I didn't want to have anything to do with agriculture. So the option for me was to either go into civil or to mechanical engineering. When I have personal chat with other people, some other time I will explain how I actually ended up in mechanical engineering, because my so to become my husband then was in mechanical engineering, and that was how I landed to choose masters in mechanical engineering, then a PhD in mechanical engineering. So that's it. Today, I am very much interested in agriculture. Now I know better than what I knew in 1991 when I was in FUTA, correct? So Palestina has a farm today. I personally go to farm. I wear my kits and everything with some of the staff members. Also go with some students as well. Try to get interested into agriculture, because I know that is the way to go. We need to secure the future. We need to do a lot more in the field of agriculture. And for me, I was very happy when I realized that agriculture is actually part of the mandate of policy. Next slide, please.
Okay, Professor Akinlabi, 1 minute to wrap up.
All right, thank you very much, moderator. So to summarize, I was round up by saying that statistics are shocking. I've presented some of the opportunities on the AU on agriculture and food security, and I will encourage many women and men alike to please take up those opportunities and run with them. Also highlighted how we can address some of the challenges that are plaguing women in agriculture. I've shared some of my case studies, and to me, I believe that we all have a wake-up call to think African, to provide solutions to food insecurity that we find ourselves in on the African continent. We need to create more awareness on the importance of women in agriculture. We need more young women to get into the field of agriculture. And lastly, I will say, don't die with your dream. Please collaborate. Finally, I will also say that if there's no one around you to motivate you, you better motivate yourself. That is always my own watchword. On this note, I would like to thank the organizers and everyone, all the stakeholders, and the management of IITA for the support towards this symposium. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Akinlabi. This was also very inspiring. I have many questions for you, even myself, but we'll get to the panel discussion. I think this panel discussion is very promising. It will be very interesting. Moving on to the next presenter, Mr. Ernest Obe. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Mr. Ernest Obe is the head of Division of Agriculture in ECOWAS. And for those who do not know, ECOWAS is just the economic organization of West African states. And he's the head of the Agriculture Division. He's based in Abuja, Nigeria. And he is responsible for agriculture and food security programs. Previously, he worked with Catholic Relief Services, Action Aid, the ILO, UNDP in the Gambia, where he is a citizen of. and he serves in a number of regional and continental committees on agriculture and rural development. He's also a recipient of several national and international awards, and he's a graduate of the University of Sierra Leone, University of Edinburgh, and Institute for Social Studies in Hague, and the International Labour Organization Training Center in Turin. Please, Mr. Ernest Obi, you can open your mic and the floor is yours. He will be talking on creating visibility in the field of agriculture. Over to you, Mr. Obi.
Okay. Thank you very much, moderator. I would like to stand on the existing protocols that the earlier speakers have established. My topic is creating visibility in the field of agriculture for women. In order to save time, I would not talk on the challenges because earlier speakers have dealt justice to the challenges and have also proposed some of the solutions. So now, I would go straight to the topic on creating visibility in the field of agriculture. As was said earlier, there is a lot of stereotyping about women in agriculture, and also the opportunities for women tend to be less when compared to their male counterparts. But nevertheless, if we are to move forward in terms of creating that visibility, we must, as individuals, promote gender equality. I think for me, that's the starting point. The sciences do not discriminate in terms of gender. Once you are passionate about the sciences, once you are passionate about agriculture, you can definitely reach the highest peak in those disciplines. The stereotyping, the lack of recognition of the contributions of women in agriculture has to some extent put the development of agriculture backwards on the continent, because we are ignoring over 60 to 70% of the workforce in agriculture on the continent. And this is not a good development at all. So in creating that visibility, it is important that, one, we promote gender equality. Secondly, when you look at the role of women in agriculture, it's very significant. Whether it's production, processing, marketing, the management of natural resources is significant. But do we really showcase such achievements? My answer is no. So the first thing which we need to do to bring about that visibility of women is to showcase the achievements of women in agriculture at all levels of the value chain, from production, processing, marketing, up to consumption. We must showcase the achievements. In addition to that, we must showcase the achievements of women in the various agricultural disciplines, whether it's agricultural engineering, whether it's agriculture economics, agronomy, soil science, crop protection, etc. So we must showcase the achievements of women in the agricultural value chain in the continent. This would help to change stereotypes and mindsets about women in agriculture. Also, number two, the achievements, as I said earlier, of women in agriculture is significant by all standards. But do we document them? No, we only document them when it comes to conferences, workshops, and symposium of this type. I think it is very important that we start documenting such achievements and upscaling them through workshops, through training programs at all levels, from the local level, national, regional, and continental level. This is very, very critical, so that it would also serve as a stimulus for our young girls, for our young women who want to develop a career and an interest in agricultural science. Number 3, also, we need to develop our education system and even reorientate it. Agriculture is not just a job or a profession for the men. I see it as a profession for everybody, men and women inclusive. We must try to review our curriculum, especially from the secondary to the higher level, to the tertiary level, to ensure that we incorporate agricultural science as a key subject, and also ensure that we make it in such a way that our children, especially the girl child, would develop an interest in it. And in this regard, agriculture is a science. We must promote STEM. You cannot talk about agriculture, engineering, agronomy, entomology, etc., without looking at the science. So we need to review our curriculum across board. Also, to bring about visibility. As I said earlier, women make a significant contribution to agriculture, but their contribution is never captured in national statistics, in the gross domestic product of our countries. We just take it as an addition to whatever the men do, or we don't even disaggregate it, as was said by an earlier speaker. So it is important that the contributions of women in agriculture are captured in the national statistics of our countries and our regions. Also, we must start looking at disaggregated data, because if you look at most countries, their value chains, women play a significant role in food crop production. Whilst the men tend to concentrate on economic crops, the women concentrate on food crops, which are very vital for food and nutrition security. We must also encourage and support women into leadership position in the agriculture sector. We just cannot relegate women to the production aspect. Women must take leadership roles in agriculture. And this is emerging in some of our countries. We see a lot of women scientists coming up and assuming leadership position. A case in point is some of the speakers we had earlier this morning. It's also emerging quite a lot in a country like Nigeria. We see women in leadership position in agriculture. Also, it is very, very important that to bring that visibility of women in agriculture, we must develop mentorship programs so that our young girls, our children, our girl child can be interested in agriculture, and for them to take it up during their educational career at the secondary and the tertiary level. So mentorship is quite important, and this should be supported at all levels. In terms of moving forward, very quickly, we must mainstream women in agriculture into our national, regional, and continental agricultural policies and programs. This is critical for ECOWAS, for African Union Commission, for EAC, SADC, etc. We must also create avenues for the funding of programs that are targeted at women. And when I say programs, I'm looking at access to resources, extension service, research services. Land is very critical. Also technology, finance. We must also, as a way of moving forward, build capacities for women and the girl child. We must support more of our girls to enter the agricultural sciences, and in particular, agricultural research. I'm so pleased with our presenters today who are researchers in the agricultural sector, in rural development, rural sociology, in agricultural engineering. This positive development must be taken up at all levels, national, regional, and continental. It is critical that we have more ambassadors, more role models who can speak and spread the good news about the contributions of women in agriculture, so that we can have a critical mass of women in agriculture in all the agricultural disciplines. In conclusion, the ECOWAS Commission is very pleased with this particular workshop organized by the Voice of Women in Agriculture Development and IITA. We look forward also to the outcomes of this meeting, because such meetings and their outcomes would help us in the development of our regional policies and programs. We have a Women in Agriculture program under the Gender Department, and we need such ideas to be able to fine-tune our interventions so that we can make better impact on the ECOWAS member states. We are focusing on bringing more women on board across all the different value chains that we support. Once again, I commend Dr. Jeff and her organization, and also IITA for coming with such a brilliant symposium, and we look forward to the outcomes for possible partnership and implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obi, and we have taken great note of all the of your requests and your last questions about how to bring in the outcomes of these discussions into the ECOWAS Women in Agriculture Department. And so one of the objectives, actually a key objective of this symposium, is to develop a policy brief. And this policy brief will have to really target and give practical recommendations on how to empower women in agriculture, from the scientific field also all the way to smallholder farmers. So thank you very much. We will move in the next 2 minutes to the panel discussions. And our panel discussion will include our presenters, three presenters. And we will also welcome on board to additional panel members, Mrs. Moji Aina, who is CEO of Pod Chocolates, and also Mrs. Oluwaseun Odiga, who's an agripreneur and CEO of F-Step Cassava Enterprises. So I'll just give a few minutes for our panelists to prepare themselves, and also for us, just a quick 1 minute break. People can just get up and stretch up, and because now we're really getting into a very juicy section of this this symposium. Please post your questions on the chat. We will be addressing those. And also for people that are asking about the slides, people's information, please be aware that the bios and also the information on every speaker will be posted on the VOWDA website. So you can go there and get all information concerning all the speakers that will intervene today and tomorrow. And as well, the materials will be made available as well for people that want to consult the material later on. We are again streaming live on YouTube. There will be also information on IITA's Facebook page, the VOWDA Facebook page. And so please consult all these outlets for more information. Okay, so I hope we've all stretched out. We've all had a little cup of coffee or tea to wake ourselves up. And then we're moving to the the last section of the day before the vote of thanks. So I would like to introduce our panelists, Professor Janice Olawoye, University of Ibadan. She has given her talk. And we have Professor Esther Akinlabi, who's the director again of Paulesi, Mr. Ernest Obi, who is the head of division of Agriculture of ECOWAS, the ECOWAS Commission. And we have Mrs. Moji Aina again, CEO of Pod Chocolates, Dr. Yemisi Jeff Agbola, the founder of VOWDA, and Mrs. Oluwaseun Odigan, who is an entrepreneur and CEO of F-Step Cassava Enterprises. Let me start with our business women here, because we've heard from the scientists. We would love also to hear from the ones also out there in the field doing productions and also processing for agricultural commodities. Mrs. Moji Aina, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Welcome very much to the panel. Thank you for being here. Can you please give us in brief words your experience? What brought you into chocolates? And also, what are some of the challenges that you faced and how you were able to overcome them? And what are some of the lessons you've taken out of it that you can give to the younger generation? So, briefly.
Okay, what brought me into chocolate, it was because I realized that we grow a lot of cocoa in Nigeria and most of it is exported. And I wondered why. Why are we not making chocolates? Why are we exporting our cocoa beans and then importing the chocolates? And I think it's because people are not aware. People don't know that, know the value that you can get from chocolate as opposed to just the cocoa. And I think Professor Janice touched on that when she was talking about the cassava and talking about how people, the farmers, when she went to meet them and said, oh, instead of selling your tubers, why don't you add value to it and you can actually make more money? And that is something I think is missing a lot in the agricultural field. Most of the training, I think, is usually on production, and not really the value addition that can be given to the actual products that are being grown. Some of the challenges I faced, I think most of the challenges are similar to a lot of people in Nigeria, which would be infrastructure, even just logistics, transportation, getting the cocoa beans from field to where our factory is located in Lagos. Obviously, electricity, these I think are generic to most African countries, maybe not, but especially in Nigeria. Obviously, funds, most of the funds, I've received some grants and I've spent a lot of my money as well investing in the company. And I think that even with maybe banks or things like organizations like that, when you consider the rates, the interest rates that you may have to pay back, you just think that you're probably going to spend your whole life kind of paying back the monies that you're borrowing. So you then tend to shun them and just go at your pace. I think women are also a bit risk averse, more risk averse than men anyway, because we've kind of tried to calculate a bit more. And so for me as a woman, I'm not maybe as such a risk taker. I want to know that, okay, let me just start small and build. And I think men are more open to just going all in and taking the risk. And if anything happens, you know, they face the consequences. And I think these are some of the qualities that well, maybe make women more enduring, or maybe, I don't know. I always wonder if these are the reasons why maybe women are, from the statistics given, 66% make 66% less profit than men, maybe because we kind of are more averse to risk and more calculating and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't remember the word I'm looking for. But yeah, we're not such great risk takers. These really are some of the challenges I have faced in the field. But apart from that, I think that there have been more opportunities recently. I make chocolate, and I think for artisan chocolate makers like myself, there are actually more women in Nigeria doing it than men. So that has been great, being able to relate with some of the women in chocolate as well. We discuss some of our challenges, we share things, and I think that's something that's good with having a community of people that you can actually bounce ideas off and speak to. So I would advise a young person, find a community that is similar to yours, what you're doing, because you guys can help each other and grow together. Or as I think it was Mrs. Alabi or Professor Dr. Alabi, Akin Labi, sorry, that said, find a mentor if you can, because you would definitely avoid a lot of pitfalls that could maybe make or break your business, especially at the beginning. There's some challenges that you go through and you just think that you can never come out of it. But if you have a mentor that is guiding you and able to help you along the way, then you realize that, okay, these are some of the things that maybe are bound to happen, or maybe I made a wrong turn, but this is how I can overcome that. So find a mentor if you can, is what I would say. And I would also say, market yourself. I think we're very shy as women to put ourselves out there. I personally, I'm starting to overcome this. I'm still not a good marketer, but market yourself wherever you are. You never know who's around. You never know who's in the room. You never know who is available to offer you assistance or guidance, or it may even just be in conversation and someone says something and it just strikes a thing in you that you've been looking for an answer to. So wherever you find yourself, build the confidence enough to talk about yourself, talk about what you're doing, talk about your products. Those are the things I would tell anyone that is just coming up and starting in whatever field it is they find themselves.
Mrs. Moji, and since you've been very humble, let me toot your horn a little bit, because this is important as well. This is a classical example of how women stay shy and we're not able to show really what we're capable of doing. So I'll do it for you as a sister, and that is one also is important, that we highlight each other. I'm told that you are, in terms of large production, you are the first chocolate maker in this country. And I think this is important that we applaud that and we acknowledge it, because you are a trailblazer in your field. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned you have to build your confidence, market yourself. And you are a risk taker. Unlike what you just said, like women maybe not very much. You took a risk right there. So that speaks really to a question I had. I don't know if you want to say more on that. And there was an interesting anecdote as well on how getting into the chocolate business started with you wanting chocolate at your wedding.
Yes. I'm a chocolate addict, I think is what anyone would say. I absolutely love chocolate. And so when I was getting married, I wanted chocolate at my wedding. And I couldn't find anyone making chocolates in Nigeria. And at the time, I was working in the UK. And I actually took time off work. I took like 5 days vacation. And I went to learn how to make chocolates. At the time, I was working as a pensions analyst. And the chocolate world was so much fun. And it was so interesting. I was like, why am I doing this pensions work? I gave myself a 10-year plan, and I was like, okay, I'm going to continue as a pensions analyst. And after 10 years, I'm going to move into the chocolate field. But I think God had other plans for me. After I got married, I couldn't find work. So I made chocolates for someone's wedding, and then someone found out and asked if I could make chocolates for their own wedding, and I did that. And then someone else, and that was kind of how I got myself in chocolate.
This is incredible. Sometimes we stumble upon things that end up really sparking our passion and then completely veering off course.
Yes.
So this is great. Thank you. I would like to hear from Sheun. Sheun is the CEO of FSTEF Cassava Enterprise, and she actually had a first degree in agriculture at the University of Edo Ekiti and a master's in business administration from Lakode Akintola Universities. She is really one of the champions and pioneers of representing the IITA youth agripreneurs, because she has done a lot of work with IITA, but also on her farm, where she currently has, please correct me if I'm wrong, 45 hectares of land. And she is employing several youth as well, and she is also involved in some of the programs and training of young people within IITA programs. So Sheun, I would like you to talk a little bit about your experience moving into production, becoming a businesswoman, and some key takeaways or lessons that you can give to people wanting to go in the field.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sheun.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mike,
we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, can you see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Gidon Sheun, the CEO of FSTEF Cassava Enterprise.
Yes, you're a bit dark. Is it possible for you to move away from the window so that we can see you?
Okay.
Okay, much better, much better.
Okay. So I was once part of the youth agripreneur, but now I'm the CEO. Yes, I have 45 hectares of cassava farm and maize. The business started in 2016 with just 2 hectares of land, which is basically cassava. And I decided to go into cassava because I discovered that most of the processing centers, they have low access to raw materials. So coming into IITA, after the discovery of the new varieties that they have, I sat down, I was like, okay, I can serve as extension agent between IITA and farmers, like providing good planting materials. Then as an entrepreneur, not as research, the way IITA is doing it. So I started with 2 hectares of stem multiplication and root production. So in like 2 years after, then I was supported financially, which increased the production to 15 hectares of land. That was around 13 hectares of cassava farm and 2 hectares of maize farm. You know, in doing the business, it's something I really love doing. You know, like they used to say that, oh, women, how is it easy for you to go to the farm when you are not a man and you just do things like this, work like a man? You know, production, everybody don't like going into production, most especially women. See, it's as a dirty job. That's something that is not that easy for women to do. But while I was doing it, you know, I derived this joy from it, like, oh, wow, this thing is sweet. So with that, the passion keeps moving, and I was able to increase the production to 30 hectares of cassava and 15 hectares of maize at present. So that is what we've been doing in FSTEF for now.
Thank you so much. We have a question about how to get funds or loans, grants to start the business. And I would love Moji and Sheun to discuss this. How were you able to secure the funding for your enterprise?
It has been a challenging point. Getting a grant, though I was opportune to get the grant from AFDB. That was how I increased the production from 2 hectares to 15 hectares. It's a lucky opportunity for me, which is very rare. It's very rare. Now, getting a loan, and in Nigeria, for us to get a single-digit loan, it's very difficult, most especially for we that are just coming up. If you don't have assets to stand for it, if you don't have equity and all the likes, it's somehow difficult to get loans. So far, I've been able to secure loan from Sterling Bank, which I've paid, but I must be truthful. It is not very easy to get a grant and a loan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Seun.
I want to agree with Oluwaseun. My first grant came from the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And since then, I tried to get a loan, but the interest rate was about 22% or something. So I definitely wasn't going to do that. And so I've just kind of been putting back whatever profits into the business and just growing gradually. Getting some interest-free loans from family, payback. If I have to buy something in bulk, just get an interest-free loan from family, friends. But I haven't done any major thing with the bank. The one single-digit loans, as she mentioned, if you're trying to get it, the documentation, everything you need to have available, there's a higher probability that you don't have them, that you wouldn't have all the requirements. So in essence, you'll probably not be able to. Of course, in Nigeria, people forge documents and things like that. And some would encourage you to even do that to just get the loan. But integrity is key. So it's better not.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. This really highlights how difficult it is. And also, it shows that sometimes angel investors or first investors have to break in before and really support young businesses before the banks and the financial institutions really come along. So this is really, that's very clear, and this explains why there's so many I guess, bid or competitions for business plans of young people, because without that, it's very difficult for them to break out. Thank you so much for these points. I would like to ask Professor Janice, you have mentioned that sometimes the way women look at their work is even very demeaning, or they undermine the kind of work that they do. And why is that? And how can we really overcome this way of systematically downplaying ourselves? Because we see it across the field, even if you're talking about scientists or talking about women as well in the field. And then the second point is also, how do we bring the voice of rural women into conversations like this that we're having? Because let's face it, we're all here educated, and you know, we've had access of even to the, even though the privileges or the opportunities are limited, we can count ourselves amongst the very lucky few ones. And so how do we bring the voice of the rural women in these type of conversations, and even in the highest spheres of decision making? So 2 questions in one. Okay, all right. So I will actually, I see that Professor Janice unfortunately logged off. So Professor Akinlabi, would you like to address these questions?
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Regarding women looking down on ourselves, demeaning and all of that, yeah, it's a common phenomenon. And whenever I come across women in such category, or whenever I have opportunity to speak at various fora, I try to encourage women to have a very high self-esteem. it is very, very important to have good high self-esteem, not look down on yourself. Because someone else out there can actually not look down on you, except you yourself look down on yourself. So I don't take that from anyone. When anyone looks down on me, I don't take it from anyone. So I just keep going and I ignore such from actually happening. So because I ignore anyone looking down on me, I have my self-esteem. I know the way I carry myself, the way I talk, and the way I do my things and all of that. And I must say that I try to teach women, fellow women, how to actually go about things, especially when there are incidences that has taken place. I try to encourage and actually motivate women to try as much as possible to improve their self-esteem. The way you carry yourself, the way you dress, that's the way you be addressed. It's very, very important. All these little things are very, very important in the way and manner we carry ourselves. And that I preach from time to time. Secondly, regarding the rural women not able to participate in forum like this, yeah, it's really, I would say it's actually 50-50. We cannot categorically actually say that they are all completely knocked out of this forum, because with technology, many of them with cell phones, people can connect even from rural areas. Once it's an area that has internet, we are also still aware that there are places in Nigeria and the rest of Africa that still don't have internet connectivity, and some also don't have the devices to connect and all of that. I believe that those who are in the field of agricultural rural extension, I think they need to also assist to do more regarding trying to reach out to the rural women. So that is what I will add to that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. There are so many questions also popping up in the chat. These conversations are sparking questions, so this is great. I would also like to ask the same question to Mr. Obi. How do we bring the voices of women in these kind of spheres like ECOWAS and other institutions? And what can governments or institutions like this do to inspire women in agriculture and also uplift women, smallholder farmers?
Thank you very much. We encourage women to be part and parcel of our various agriculture programs, because the programs are meant not just for the men, but also for men and women. So what you would need to do is to establish a link with our Department of Agriculture. Also, we have a Department of Gender and Social Affairs, which addresses the issues of gender equality, women and youth empowerment. So you can key into some of these programs. As a matter of fact, when we develop a regional agricultural investment plan, and also when the member states develop their national agricultural investment plans, we have a lot of inputs from women's organizations, individual women's farmers, CSOs, that is CSOs and farmer-based organization. So we do encourage women to key into our programs, because we realize the importance of women. Women constitute the larger percentage in the agricultural workforce of our member states. So that is one. We also have various institutions, regional institutions, that would support agricultural proposals and interventions. For example, somebody mentioned about the African Development Bank. The ECOWAS also has what we call the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, EBID, which is based in Lomé, Togo. They also look at opportunities for investment in the agriculture sector for women also. Once it meets your proposal meets their requirements, nothing is stopping them from supporting women intervention. So that would be my response to your question. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It would be great if we can also have information on this bank and so that we can pass it on as well for people that would be interested in getting in touch. One aspect that I see here in the chat, Professor Stella Williams mentioned both Moji and Shehu they've been truthful on the issues of getting loans. But thanks to Dr. Akinwumi Adeshina, if you're a registered cooperative, you can get an opportunity to get a single-digit loan under the federal government's guarantee loan scheme at the central bank. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So this is also more information for people. One important point that we want to mention here within this panel discussions. And I'm turning to you, Professor Yemisi Jeff Agbola, who's really the reason why we're here. We are all gathered here today. What led you to thinking about VOWDA? That's one. And also about this symposium. How did it come about?
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a very nice question. Let me start from the last question. How did you come about this symposium? Like in 2019, I was a Fulbright visiting scholar at a university in the US. And so I organized so many community development programs in different institutions in the US. And again, I happened to, I was so fortunate to give a presentation at Cornell University. And then we talked about the role of women in food safety management and focusing on mycotoxin in Africa. And then at the last, I talked about so many challenges faced by African women, and if they have to put up, they have to really help in ending hunger in Africa. And I told them that we actually need to they told me that, okay, I have a voice, because they asked some questions about how do we get across to government officials and to some stakeholders and bring these farmers into center of discussion. And they made me to realize that I have a voice. I am capable of doing this, and I can do that. And so when I came back from my fellowship program, I was thinking of, I always remember that statement, I have a voice, I can do that. And the first thing that came to my mind was to speak to somebody that I know, that is Dr. Adegboyega Taofik. I said, oh, please, we really need to get in touch with IITA. I have been a researcher in IITA before, but you know, because it was the one on grant then, he linked me up to IITA, to the right people at IITA. And so we started talking about it, and I could remember when we were planning this program, Dr. Rajana said, don't involve only scientists, we need to bring the farmers. We're talking about the smallholders farmers. This is the time for them to come and speak. And since then, I've been thinking of, okay, how do we involve smallholders farmers in that discussion? Because in most of the time, we discuss about smallholders farmers, but we don't bring them into center of discussion. And so what actually informed me for forming this Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture was I became an award fellow. Award is African Women in Agricultural Research and Development in 2013. And we went for different trainings, and it was, before you can be, when you're an award fellow, you must be very strong, because you will pass through different rigorous training, leadership training, building science skills, and all that. And in my mind, whenever we together, I used to think, and they told us that we are the agent of change, that could be, we should go to our various countries and make changes in our country. And so I started thinking, how do I make changes in my country? I am a food microbiologist. And then who will talk to me, but they taught us so many things, and they built our confidence, and let me just say my confidence and many confidence of our award fellow. And so in that 2013, we started the journey and started gathering farmers together, and later we got took funding to give empowerment program for their children, because most of these farmers, they don't even have access to many resources or so many things we have, and then their children don't go to good food and good schools. They don't have access to good education, and these are the people that produce the food we eat. And so the first thing we first did was to provide bursaries for school children in order to catch them young for agriculture. And then we did mentoring program for them, and we mentored them, and then we observed that majority of them perform very well, even in science. And right now, majority of them have graduated. They are going to go to schools and study agriculture. And so it was the journey from award. Award actually built a great confidence in me, and that was why we invited Dr. Vikki Wild to come and give a presentation, because she did a very good job by empowering African women scientists. It was based on that we started Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture. Thank you. And we got a full registration in 2015. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for talking about this inspiring journey that you've had. And there is a lot of, it just echoes, it keeps coming back. Mentorship, network, finding somebody who can, help you and build your confidence. But I also want to ask you, Dr. Agjefa-Bola, and also Professor Akinlabi. We often speak of the struggle of the trailblazers. It's good to have courage, but sometimes when it's too heavy to carry, where do you go? That is something I would like you to hear. And sometimes when the courage is lacking, how do you get it back? Because when you are in these positions, you take a heavy load so that you can really clear the path for the next generation. So when it gets heavy, where do you go?
Okay, thank you so much. Let me just start by saying this. As women, we really need to learn how to encourage ourselves. That's the first thing, because you are going to be discouraged. Most especially when you work, though I don't really have more challenges in working with men, because I see them as people that can help me. Now, it depends on how you see the world. If you see the world like you're alone, and when they talk to you, you feel so bad because you're a woman, that's why they talk to you. It's like having a negative energy will draw you back. If you believe that everybody around you are there to help you, to support you, you will get the support you need. And that is why today, the Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture is not only for women. We also identify gender responsive women, men, because this happened in 2014 when Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were doing their Grand Challenges, 10th year Grand Challenges program, and I was invited to come and speak speak and give recommendation on how Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation can empower women in Africa, women and girls in Africa. And I said that if you really want to empower us, because this is Africa, and we believe that if you want to empower women, we have to carry some gender responsive men along. And if you don't want to send us away from our husband's house, because some people believe that some women are threats to them, and so they face a lot of challenges. So if you really want to make us happy, you have to also give recognition to some men among us. And like we have leaders, our rulers and our leaders, and that is why Voice of Women in the Development of Agriculture really count on the support of men. Whenever we want to do anything, we talk to some men that can help us. These are the things we want to do, and so they have always been there for us. And so we don't only focus on women, because this is a global battle about ending hunger. It's not only women that will end the hunger. Every one of us, it's a collaborative effort, and that is why we always talk to people that can help us to achieve what we want to achieve. And most especially, we also talk to them that, we have women too that need your support. Please help us. And this has been what we've been doing. We don't only focus on women, we focus on gender responsive men as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Professor Jeff Agbola. And Professor Akinlabi, do you want to add any comments?
Yeah, I just want to strengthen what Dr. Agbola has said, that I am not I'm not a feminist. That, you know, I'm not a feminist, and I really believe in the balance, that the world is not only about women. We have to cohabit. We need to live here peaceably with the men as well. After all, as a woman, we have a husband, we have a father, we have a son. So they are all around us. Same thing as well applies to the men as well. They have women as their wives, as mother and as sister as well. So we just have to live together. However, there is this unconscious biases that just comes into play when there's need for women to benefit from one thing or the other. And then there are also some exceptions that actually goes far to the extreme, wherein they are really very gender insensitive and actually relate with the opposite sex in a way that is actually unacceptable. I don't know, still touch on mentorship and networking. These two, I must say, go hand in hand together. So for me, I am very happy that I am someone that I recognize the idea around mentorship and role modeling very, very early in my career. I've always had role models that I look up to. I don't have access to them, but I look up to them. I go after them, watch their CVs, and when they appear in the media, I'm keeping track, and I'm saying, oh, I would love to be where this woman is, and those kind of a thing. I tell myself, and those kind of a, that is role modeling. And then come mentorship. At every point in my career, I've always had mentors, and I must say that I've reaped a lot of benefits from having mentors at every point in my career. Even at this particular point in time, there's no end to growing in life. There's no end to growing, even in one's career. Even now, as the director of Policy, I have many mentees. Esther has mentors, not only one. I have mentors that I look up to. When I'm at those crossroads, I pick my phone and I call them, and they are there to give me advices and what to do at certain instances. So there's no one that can actually say, I'm so grown and I don't need a mentor any longer in my life. So if people are out there and you think you can do it all alone, I am telling you, you're not. You cannot do it alone. You just have to. And we have to be conscious of the fact that we need to go out and look for these mentors. Mentors will not come looking for you. You have to go out, because I must say there are very few mentors out there. I am someone that I will say that I have capacity, let me put it that way. I have so many mentees, both official mentees that we have structured time of meetings and all of that. They are enrolled in various programs that we have to sign documents that we actually met. And then the numerous informal mentees that I also have. And in the midst of all that, for me, I take passion, I take delight, I take joy in mentoring people. So please, for the women who are at the top of their career, professors in the field, and please, let's get on board together. It is very, very important that we mentor these young ones, because life is all about sharing our experiences. I do a lot of talk shows, a lot of experience sharing, and it has always been very wonderful feedbacks, sharing my life experiences from that village rural girl from Kaba village in Kogi State to where God has taken me to today. Sharing my life story alone has always been of great benefit to someone out there who feels that because she hails from a village, she cannot make it in life. So there are so many things we can learn from having mentors. So if you're on this platform today and you don't have one, I will encourage you, please do, because the benefits are so numerous. They are uncountable. I have benefited hugely and immensely from having mentors in my life, and I'll continue to have mentors. So please, let's get on board, because I know that it will really help us to avoid those traps. Those times when we are down, the mentors are the ones we call upon. Not even your husband, I'm telling you. There are times you need those mentors there to just pat you on the back and wipe those tears and give you a lot of their experiences. I know what I'm talking about. And any one of us who are attendees on this symposium this afternoon who have been in the practice of mentorship, you definitely understand what I'm talking about. It is those who are out there who have not experienced it that feel, oh, there's nothing in it, in mentorship. And lastly, as I round up, I want to say that the fact remains that as a mentee, you benefit a lot from the network of your mentor. So for me, all my mentees, they need a contact in one country or the other. Once Esther knows someone in that country, it is a done deal that mentee already knows someone. So they want this network, they want to connect with somebody, they want to apply for grant applications or one thing or the other. They leverage a lot on my own networks, and that has worked so well. I have also leveraged as well on the networks of my own mentors. So I'm just passing, I just see myself passing the baton. If people that have gone ahead of me as my mentors have helped me to leverage on so many opportunities, why wouldn't I also do the same for the mentees that I'm also mentoring at this particular point in time? And the same thing I tell them as well. You're benefiting this from me. Ensure that you also get along on board to mentor someone as well. And then the chain goes on and on. You're helping people. So that's my few submission this afternoon. It's really rewarding. That's the closing remark. Really, really rewarding. Thank you very much, moderator.
Great, great. Thank you very much for this. Is very encouraging, even for us in the room. I know you can't see, but everybody was like nodding along and saying yes, yes, yes. So what you said is very critical. I will follow it up with some of the questions in the chat. We have just a few minutes before we wrap up. So is there any scholarship program, and that is to you, Professor Akinlabi, is there any scholarship program in Nigeria for students that want to study agriculture in a bid to encourage students into agriculture? And then there is also a question to you directly. As a director of Paulesi, how would you bring in students without agricultural background to study agricultural-related programs? And this is from somebody with a background in microbiology, so they were hoping, how do you get into the field? Yeah. So quickly, if you can address that in a minute.
All right. Thank you, moderator. The first question on scholarships for agriculture, right? I will highlight that the one I'm very much aware of is that of the Pan-African University. Our part of our mandate is agriculture, but the only program we have at this particular point in time is the master's and PhD in plant breeding. So students who we take in students from agricultural fields and all of that. And the scholarship is opened 1st of June every year and closes on the 31st of July every year. So you can take note of that and look out for such a cause when they are out. Actually, I will encourage that students that are looking for opportunity for scholarships, there are so many other websites out there that one can actually keep checking, and also on the media as well. There are always these announcements that just comes through on the phone, talking about scholarship opportunities and all of that. I also link it again also to the mentorship I was talking about. As a mentor, when I see opportunities that my mentees qualify for, that they can apply for, I always pass those information down to them to apply for them. So I've spoken about the Paulesi scholarship for master's and PhD. Then how to get students who did not study agriculture to be in agriculture. We don't have a bridging program. So for someone from the microbiology, the program coordinators on the program, they are the people that are best placed to actually advise. So basically, when the advert is out, we receive emails for general inquiries. So I will advise that if this person that is talking to me will be interested in offering any program in Paulesi, such a person needs to look at the 10 master's program that we run and the 6 PhD programs. Maybe reproductive biology, not necessarily agriculture, might be a program that you can fit into. However, there's nothing wrong in asking. So if there are people who have had qualifications in programs that are not specific on the Paulesi website, you can send in an email for general inquiries, and I can promise you we respond timelessly to all inquiries. You tell us what you have studied. You have a BSc, a degree in social program. You are interested in this particular program. Do you qualify to apply? And we have always advised you very, very right. Yeah, those are my advice for that. Thank you very much.
Much, Professor Akinlabi. There is also conversations going on in the chat where people are asking questions related to NAFDAC, and they're getting the informations they need. So we're collating those, but we won't be able to answer those. We are pressed for time. What is the next question? Yes. So we have just a rounding up question for this panel. I know it's been very, very interesting, and we have so many things to discuss. We could be here all day. Unfortunately, we have to respect our time. And I would, in just a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds for each panelist, what role do you see women playing in agriculture now and in the future? In a few words, these we would like you to address that in your closing remarks. We'll start with Professor Jeff Agbola.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I discovered that women are not supposed to be and improving food security and food safety in Africa, in Nigeria, and in sub-Saharan Africa as a whole, is to see us as the faces of overcoming poverty, the faces of wealth, of prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Moji Aina, if you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. On to you.
I think women would be the ones to help grow the agricultural sector in Africa, in Nigeria, through various ways. I think because we are so, what's the word? We are multitaskers. Because we are multitaskers, even if we're in the field, we will be the ones doing the value addition. We'll be the ones doing the marketing. I think we just need to be able to collaborate more, help each other more, not see each other as competition. I think if we do that, if we're able to overcome that competitiveness that is kind of ingrained in women, we will be able to grow the industry better.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aina. I would like to call on Mr. Obi as well for his comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Women are the backbone of any food and nutrition transformation initiative in Africa. So we must see them as partners in the process. And this calls for partnership, inclusiveness, and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Sheun Odiga.
So presently, women, what we do most now is processing and marketing and the likes. But in future, with the steps that we're about to take now, like seeing ourselves as the backbone of the country, and at the same time, you know what, whatever any woman is doing, they are always committed. So with that, I see women in future taking over agricultural sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not the least, I think, Professor Akinlabi.
Thank you very much, moderator. The few words I have to say regarding this is that the fact that women provide food for the family, we see that we then enlarge the responsibility to providing food for the nation and then food for the entire continent. With that, it then means that the involvement of women in agriculture is inseparable. And that, I must say, is one thing that has made women involvement in agriculture to be a very strong point. We have a strong attachment to agriculture because we need to provide food for the family. And we taking that, we see that as a responsibility. And it is that responsibility that comes from the heart that actually drives us. So when something is driving you from your heart, passion comes in, commitment comes in. And that all of that goes round in a circle to ensure, to keep women to continue to be relevant in the field of agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This really has been a wonderful discussion. I would love us to talk some more and hear again from the business and agriculture and also the science side. But we're really hoping that, I mean, obviously due to COVID restrictions and all, this is entirely virtual. We still have a few people in the room here. But we're hoping that for the next editions, and I'm looking at Professor Jeff Agbola, you have set the bar high, and so we will be expecting even more and a greater event with more people participating and even more voices. And I really, whenever women bring themselves together, we really can do a lot of magic, and we can make things move, and we can make our voices heard. And just like Dr. Vikki Wild said, we have to be the agents of our own, of the change that we all need. And so thank you to all panelists. Yes, thank you to all panelists as well for taking the time this afternoon, and to also our speakers, the ones that gave goodwill messages. We really want to thank you all. Thank you to participants as well for coming and taking the time to connect. Now we will have to hear the vote of thanks from Professor Babatunde Rabiu to close the day in 5 minutes. And we are meeting tomorrow, same time, same place at 11. And again, we'll have more discussions going on. Again, today, my name is Zainab Sore. I was your moderator for the day. There will be another person taking over. So after the vote of thanks, we will ask you to put on your camera just for a few minutes, and we'll take the group picture to end the day. Professor Babatunde Rabiu, over to you. Oh, okay. I think we might be having voice or audio issues.
I hope I'm communicating.
Great. We can hear you now.
The internet has been, okay. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
So much, everyone. It's been a great day. My duty is to give vote of thanks, and on behalf of the organizers of this meeting, to appreciate everyone that has been in attendance since we started, the contributors, all those that have asked questions, the panel members, Professor Olaoye, Professor Kinlabi, Dr. Ubi, Mrs. Muji Aino, Ms. Luashio Ogidon, and the president of VOWDA, Dr. Jeff Agbola, and everyone that has spoken today. The moderator of today's program has done so wonderfully well, and it's nice, it's a pleasure to appreciate you as well for the great job you have done. It's not easy to moderate online programs at times when the internet connectivity is not stable, or even to bring people on board and to manage time and to put things together. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the management of the institutions that are collaborating with VOWDA in bringing this together. And I'm sure
Oops, we've lost Professor Rabiu. Oh. Professor Rabiu, can you hear us?
That the important noted during the question time, even on the chat box. So thank you very much for this wonderful meeting. I wish everyone a pleasant day. Tomorrow is another big day. It's going to be bigger than today. So let's be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Rabiu, and thank you again for your appreciations and of everyone. So we will now open our cameras and turn on our cameras, rather. And we would like to take a group photo with all participants. So please turn on your camera. Yeah, okay. Let us know when it's ready.
So you all look into
this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us when it's ready. Can you maybe say? Oh, okay, all right. Everyone, and see you tomorrow. And thank you for those online.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. You just said that we'll expect to see you all tomorrow.
Yeah, I think she said that already.
Yes.